Yeah guys, just ran 3 miles, and today I did meet all my goals. Ran pretty fast. I think each one was around 7:48, and so I'm excited that moving into this third week, almost like a second 2-week cycle, I can start to explore a significantly different genre of music. And so I moved down on the playlist. Instead of drawing from the 8.5 to 9.5 playlist, I'm now drawing from the 8 to 9 playlist. And if my pace, well, I guess tomorrow I'll go 4 miles, so I'm not going to try to catch up to my pace yet, because I think it's wiser to wait a few days before that average pace starts to actually influence any reaction in the process. So I've been thinking a lot about not hating the player but hating the game, and thinking about how it would, in order to make a clear argument, would take a lot of time, but in order to get a lot of time, one has to make a series of usable arguments that are short enough to fit into the slot that a normal pundit would get. And so it's like a gradual process of moving through concentric circles of feedback loops and trying to level up by practicing the process that has already worked for thousands of other people. Like thinking about how to influence our electoral system. So I have often favored like kind of a large scale change to it, but what I was exploring today is joining an organization that is making like gradual changes to the way the process is executed, and that stood out to me big time, because I realized that if we can protect the way that people are able to vote in our current regime, then that can start to unlock the optimism going forward that can lead to a longer lasting change to the structure. So that was really appealing, and like having the experience of failing when I tried to be ambitious and realizing that I need to be less ambitious has been really cool for me, because I'm starting to realize that there's no point in hating. I was gonna say this, there's no point in hating the game. I have to play the game. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it kind of does, because even if I hate the game, I still have to play the game. And I think that's the point of don't hate the player. People understand that what they are struggling with is something known as institutional racism, but they don't realize that means that they need to forgive people for being individually confused about race, and they need to understand that they can't control people's feelings, and therefore they can only try to control the institutions. So I think that's a very inspiring thought to explore, because clearly we have had no success at trying to influence people on this individual shaming basis. But if we can find a way to forgive the individual shameful, or try to understand and forgive the individual behavior, then we can find a way to reshape our institutions, or more likely layer on an additional institution. Like that's another interesting thing about our liberal democracy, is that in order to be more tolerant than almost any country in the history of the universe, we have to have layers upon layers of government, and each one of them introduces a whole universe of wastefulness and failure and thrashing, and we invest a whole lot of our resources into this process of trying to figure out how to tolerate each other, and still failing. So that ultimately, I want to frame it as an inspiring thought, because when you realize what you can't influence and what you can't change, then it lets you let go and have catharsis. Like, I learned about the practice of gone noting, and you just cause your mind to speak a note every time it notices the absence of something that was there. And each one of these distractions that it keeps throbbing against our temple can be released by one of these lessons that comes from falling down on your face and failing. So send me some tracks so that I can try to push my body until I experience something new. One last thing to mention is that today I instituted a new practice of stretching for 20 minutes before I ran. I noticed that my body was really, really needing to stretch. So I threw on an episode of BoJack and stretched for the entirety of the episode. However, I actually forgot to throw on my meditation track before I ran. So I'll try to reinstitute that tomorrow, and hopefully it will lead me back to a less egotistical version of my my revelatory philosophy dump. All right, thanks a lot for coming to my channel.